Well, with chaos in the world at an all-time high and confidence in the US dollar at an all-time low, more and more people feel compelled to put some of their savings into precious metals. Unfortunately, short of storing the physical metals in your house, there's no easy way to do that. You might think it's simple enough to buy exchange-traded funds like GLD and SLV, but when tax time rolls around, you might suddenly realize, as I did, just how onerous the reporting requirements are. Still, it's not that difficult, it's just tedious, and all you need is basic spreadsheet software. So here I'm going to go through the tax calculation as I did it. But let me emphasize, I'm neither an accountant nor a tax expert, and I'm not giving tax advice. I'm just a guy with some shares trying to follow the rules as prescribed by IRS and the fund managers. So I advise you to try this only if you understand yourself what you're doing. The example I'll be using is the iShares Silver Trust, ticker symbol SLV, and the software is the Calc spreadsheet from OpenOffice, which is free and open source. For reporting capital gains, I'll be using the standard Form 8949, which can be submitted to IRS on paper or online using free fillable forms. I've never used commercial tax software, so I don't know how that works. Okay, so the basic problem is that the way these funds raise money to pay their expenses is by selling roughly 0.5% of your holdings every year, spread out in 12 monthly installments. And even though they keep the money, you have to pay capital gains tax on each sale as if you sold the physical metal yourself. You still own the same number of shares, but the amount of silver represented by each share declines marginally every month, and so does your basis. And since gold and silver are considered collectibles, all kinds of special rules apply. In particular, the long-term capital gains rate tops out at 28%, not 20%. And the maintenance fees can't be added to the basis, nor are they deductible as an investment expense. Furthermore, for reasons known only to themselves, the brokerage companies don't bother to report your basis and your capital gains to IRS, so you can't just lump all your phantom capital gains together. Strictly speaking, you're supposed to report each monthly sale individually. To do that, we need to download the fund's tax data spreadsheet. So here's the iShares Silver site, and it's not that obvious, but it's down toward the bottom of the page here, Tax Documents. The data you need are on sheet 2 of the file. And here's what it looks like. It gives 3 pieces of data. First, ounces of silver represented by 1 share on every day of the past year. And then on the last day of each month, it gives the amount of silver sold per share in ounces to cover expenses, and the proceeds per share in dollars for each sale. Sheet 3 gives a sample computation with full explanation. And I'm doing basically the same thing. I've just put it in spreadsheet form to accommodate multiple share purchases and monthly de minimis redemptions. Okay, let's do short-term gains first, and we'll start our own spreadsheet where each column corresponds to a purchase of SLV shares. So starting at the top row, we've got the purchase date, then the number of shares. Let's say I bought 300 shares on July 22nd, 2024, and then the purchase price per share, and then the basis. In this case, it's the basis on January 1 of tax year 2025, and we'll see later how to compute that. Line 5 is ounces per share on the date of purchase, which we get from the 2024 tax table. So July 22nd, 2024, 0.91325,102. We'll just copy and paste that in. Then, to get the price per ounce for that batch of shares, divide the original price per share by ounces per share, so B3 divided by B5. Line 7 is total ounces bought, which is going to be 300 times the ounces per share, so equals B2 times B5. Line 8 is the number of ounces per share that are sold and taxed as short-term gains. We'll see how to get that in a minute. Multiplying that by 300, that is B2 times B8, gives the total ounces sold and taxed, and multiplying that by the initial cost per ounce, in other words, B6 times B9, gives the cost of those ounces, which is the basis for the sales. To get the proceeds of those ounces, we multiply 300 times the proceeds per share, which we'll calculate from the iShares data table. So B2 times B11. Then the gain or loss from the sale is just the proceeds minus the cost of the sold ounces, or B12 minus B10. Subtracting the cost of ounces sold from the starting basis, or B4 minus B10, gives the new basis, which in this case will forward to the long-term gains calculation. Finally, we can take the ounces owned on January 1st, which we get from last year's calculation, and subtract the ounces sold, so B15 minus B9, to give a new figure for ounces owned, again to be forwarded to the long-term gains computation. Dividing that by the number of shares, or B16 over B2, gives the new ounces per share. Once you set up the formulas in the B column, you can just copy and paste each formula into as many columns as you have share purchases. And by default, the software will increment B2 times B5 to C2 times C5 and so forth. Okay, now let's go back and fill in ounces sold per share and proceeds per share. For that, we'll make a second spreadsheet showing data by month, January to December. We'll first need to copy and paste ounces sold per share and proceeds per share for the last day of each month as listed in the downloaded iShares tax data. So here's February, for example, and we'll just copy and paste that in. Now going back to the first column of our first spreadsheet, since we bought those 300 shares in July 2024, only the sales January to June of 2025 will yield short-term gains. So we need to add ounces sold per share for that same period, so the sum of B2 through B7. And we'll just copy and paste that into B8 of the first spreadsheet. For that, we need to use paste special so that the software will paste in the numerical value, not the formula. Similarly, the total proceeds per share will be the sum of C2 through C7, and we'll copy that into B11 of sheet 1. Now everything else in that column is automatically calculated. So let's look at these other columns. For shares bought in October 2024, all sales January through September are short term. So we sum ounces per share and proceeds per share, B2 through B10, and paste that into the C column of sheet 1. Everything else is the same as B column. For shares bought in February 2025, the basis is just the initial purchase price, or 200 times the price per share, and will sum ounces sold and proceeds from February through December. That will give a new basis to be carried over to next year's tax computation. And that's how I got the January 1 basis for the shares bought in 2024 when I computed last year's taxes. Here's a summary of the formulae and other data sources for the spreadsheet. Believe it or not, we're still not done because IRS wants the gains listed by date of sale, not date of purchase. So let's go back to sheet 2 and add a few more columns. Column D is the number of shares with sales subject to short-term capital gains in each month. So we start in January with these two batches of shares, 400 in total. In February, we add these newly purchased shares, so 600 shares, and that continues until July when the first batch of shares transitions to long-term gains. That leaves 300 shares until October when the second batch goes long-term, leaving 200 shares through December. Now, for each of these groupings of shares, we need the weighted average purchase price per ounce, and you have to be very careful about how you do that. Let's calculate it off to the side. So for January, average price per ounce is 300 times this value plus 100 times this value, then divided by 400 total shares. In other words, B2, B6 plus C2, C6 over B2 plus C2. And copy and paste that number into the January row, again using paste special. For February, where all 600 shares were involved, we'll need the weighted average of all three batches. So B2, B6 plus C2, C6 plus D2, D6 divided by B2 plus C2 plus D2, copy and paste, and that same value applies from February through June. For July through September, it's the weighted average of just the latter two batches. And for October to December, it's the value of the last batch only. Now I need a few more columns. The basis for silver sold in January is ounces sold per share times number of shares times the original price per ounce. So B2 times D2 times E2. The proceeds of that sale is number of shares times proceeds per share from the tax data table, or D2 times C2. And finally, proceeds minus basis, F2 minus G2, gives the capital gain or loss on that sale. So just copy and paste those formulas down each column. As a check, you can sum all the monthly proceeds, all the bases, and all the gains or losses, and those should closely match the total proceeds, cost of ounces sold, and gain or loss on sheet 1. The proceeds, basis, and gain or loss for each monthly sale can then be rounded to the nearest dollar and reported on IRS Form 8949, page 1, checking box B. Conveniently, this form has 11 lines, and we have 12 entries, so we need 2 of these 8949 forms. Note that you can combine various purchase dates in one entry, but each sale date is supposed to be reported individually. Believe it or not, we're still not done, because now we have to compute long-term capital gains on assets held more than a year, which IRS wants reported separately. So we need another pair of spreadsheets. We've got just one batch of 300 shares subject to long-term taxation July through September, and 400 shares from 2 batches for October to December. For each batch of shares, the starting basis and number of ounces owned is taken from the ending basis and ounces owned of the short-term spreadsheet. Otherwise, the computations are all the same as for short-term gains, using the same iShares tax data. The results are again rounded to the nearest dollar and reported on page 2 of 8949 with box E checked. And again, the sums of the bases, proceeds, and gain or loss for all months on sheet 2 should be equal to the sums for the 2 batches on sheet 1. Furthermore, the final ounces per share at the end of the year should be the same and should be very close to the final ounces per share listed on December 31st of the iShares data table. And finally, the sum of the long-term proceeds and short-term proceeds for each month should be equal to the total proceeds listed on the 1099 from your brokerage. If not, you've likely done something wrong. Of course, the same proceeds table is sent to IRS, so in principle, they'd be expecting to see the same data on your return. As if that isn't enough, there's a special worksheet that only applies if you sell collectibles, and a longer worksheet you might have to use if you sold at a profit. Do they really have to make it this complicated? Of course not. It's just harassment. Basically, they really don't want small investors owning this stuff, so they make it as difficult for us as possible. At least that's my opinion. Fortunately, in future years, it will be simpler because all capital gains will be long-term, and there will be just one big batch of shares with one average cost per ounce. Unless, of course, I'm foolish enough to buy more shares in the meantime. Anyway, thanks for watching and happy filing.